Around 31,000 years ago, deep in a cave in Borneo, someone picked up a sharp stone tool, leaned over a child, and cut off the child's left leg. And the child lived. Not for a day, not for a week. That child survived for another 6 to 9 years. No antibiotics, no anesthesia, no hospital. This was before farming, before writing, before the wheel, before the first city was ever built.
When you picture a sick or injured human back then, you probably picture a quick, lonely death. You fall behind, and that's the end. Survival of the fittest. But the bones tell a completely different story, one that quietly rewrites what it means to be human. Because to understand what really happened when ancient humans got sick, you have to face one uncomfortable fact. Some of them should have died almost instantly, and they didn't.
Let's start with a man archaeologists nicknamed Nandy. His real name is Shanadar I. His skeleton came out of a cave in what is now Iraqi Kurdistan, and he lived around 45,000 years ago. He was a Neanderthal, and Nandy was, by any measure, a disaster of a body.
A crushing blow to the head early in life likely blinded him in one eye. His right arm was withered, and at some point amputated at the elbow. His right leg was damaged. He walked with a limp. And bony growths in his ears mean he was almost completely deaf. Blind in one eye, deaf, one-armed, limping. In a world of predators where you survive by hunting and running, this man should have lasted a week. He lived into his 40s.
And there is only one way that happens. Somebody fed him. Somebody protected him. For years. But Nandy isn't a fluke. He's the start of a pattern.
Go to a cave in France, to a skeleton so famous he's simply called the Old Man. When he died, he was in his 60s, ancient for a Neanderthal, and he was falling apart. Advanced arthritis, disease in his jaw. He had lost almost all of his teeth. Think about that.
The most likely explanation is quietly astonishing. Other people were preparing his food, possibly chewing it first so a toothless old man could eat. Nobody had to do that. A body that can't hunt and can't chew is, coldly speaking, a drain on the group. They kept him alive anyway, for years.
1 or 2 skeletons could be luck, but this shows up everywhere. Across the prehistoric record, archaeologists keep finding the same thing. Broken bones that healed cleanly. A shattered foot in a cave in Israel, 35,000 years old, fused neatly back into place. A healed break is not a small thing. It means someone set the bone. It means that while the injured person lay there for weeks, unable to walk or find food, someone else brought them that food. Every well-healed fracture is a fingerprint, not of medicine, of care.
But here's where it stops being just kindness and starts looking like actual medicine.
In a Spanish cave called El Cedrón, scientists scraped the hardened plaque off Neanderthal teeth. Trapped inside were traces of 2 plants, yarrow and chamomile. Here's the strange part. Both are bitter. Both are basically useless as food. So why chew them? Because yarrow is a natural antiseptic, and chamomile calms inflammation and the gut. And the Neanderthal they came from had a dental abscess and a stomach bug. They weren't eating these plants. They were dosing themselves. Researchers even found poplar, which contains salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. 50,000 years ago, someone was, in effect, taking a painkiller.
Which brings us back to that cave in Borneo and the child who lost a leg. For a long time, the oldest known amputation was a European farmer from about 7,000 years ago. Then, in 2022, that Borneo skeleton pushed the record back by 24,000 years. And this was not an accident or a bite. The cut was clean and deliberate.
Whoever did it knew where to cut through the leg without the child bleeding to death, and how to keep the wound from killing them in a jungle with no antibiotics. That is not luck, that is knowledge, taught and remembered.
And they went much further. There is a surgery so old and so widespread that we find it on nearly every continent. It's called trepanation, and it means exactly what it sounds like, drilling a hole into a living person's skull. They did this 10,000 years ago, and it wasn't rare. Up to 1 in 10 Neolithic skulls we dig up has a hole cut into it. Now, here's the part that breaks people. Look at the edges of the hole. On most of these skulls, the bone has grown back and smoothed over. Smoothed bone means one thing: the patient survived. In some regions, survival rates for prehistoric skull surgery reached 90% with no anesthesia and no antibiotics.
So, what happened when ancient humans got sick? The honest answer is, a lot of them died. Roughly 3 out of 4 deaths came from infection. Life was genuinely dangerous. But we've been telling the story backwards.
We imagine prehistoric life as every man for himself. The weak get left behind, the strong move on. That is almost the exact opposite of what the bones show. Because look at who these skeletons belong to. The blind, deaf, one-armed man, the toothless elder, the child with one leg. In a truly ruthless world, these are the people who do not survive, and they're the ones we keep digging up, kept alive, sometimes for decades, by everyone around them. The most powerful medicine ancient humans ever had was not a plant, it was not a stone blade, it was each other. What kept a sick human alive 40,000 years ago wasn't being strong, it was not being left behind.
It even rewrites the oldest myth about them, that cavemen all died around 30. That number is a trick of the math, dragged down by babies who didn't survive. Make it through childhood, and you had a real shot at 60 or 70. But you only got those extra decades if the group carried you through the years you couldn't carry yourself.
So here's what the bones are really telling us. Before we built cities, before we wrote a single word, before we invented almost anything, we had already invented the most important thing: the decision to not abandon each other. Every healed bone is a promise someone kept. Every toothless jaw is a meal someone prepared. Every survivor is proof that somebody stayed. You come from an unbroken line of people who were sick, who were injured, who should not have made it, and did, because someone refused to walk away. That isn't a footnote in your history. That is the reason you're here.